Did you know that the ATF scrapes information using software as well as perhaps artificial intelligence off of virtually all of the firearm transactions online? Did you know that they're monitoring dark web, deep web? Do you know that they're watching AR15.com, other popular social media forums? Do you know that they're on Facebook and all these other groups? Odds are you probably had a hunch, and if you did, let me confirm it for you. Congratulations. You're right. This is part one of 2 videos where we're going to be going through a large Freedom of Information Act release that's out there, which you can see down in the description box down below. The second video you're absolutely not going to want to miss because I spoke to some experts who gave me some very creepy ideas about what the ATF could be up to track and spy on you and others. But in this video, we're going to be talking about how the ATF categorizes the retail market online, what are different groups they're looking at. We're going to be touching on briefly at the end as well, different social media forums, Facebook groups, and so forth. So guys, let's get into it. So really quickly, you can find the Freedom of Information Act document linked down in the description box down below. You'll also find a link for joining Gun Owners of America. I do not get one shiny nickel for that. It's a fantastic organization that sues the government to protect your rights. I'm a member at my own expense. You should be too. Check that out down in the description box down below. The ATF has something called the Internet Investigation Center, or the IIC for short. This is out there to basically handle and respond to threat vectors originating from across social media platforms, as well as elsewhere towards the public at large. So where are they looking? In short, the ATF is looking everywhere. They're looking wherever people are. So everywhere, wherever people are talking and coming together online. In this video, I'm going to be describing how the ATF has basically chopped up and balkanized the firearm market online, what kind of tools they might be using, because they don't go into a high level of detail here, but they do allude to some things. Unfortunately, I was able to speak offline to some experts who gave me some ideas as to what we might be talking about here, and I'm going to be sharing that with you. In the next video, we're going to be talking about specifically what kind of advanced creepy things you might inadvertently be doing to supply the ATF, as well as, by the way, just all the tech companies, but specifically here, the ATF, information about yourself that can be weaponized against you and others. So one of the things the ATF is doing is they are using commercially available. In other words, if you're a business owner, or if you're a private individual, there's nothing that would stop you or could stop you from going out and engaging in the similar types of tactics the ATF is doing, okay? At least this is the part we're talking about right now. To go out there and to scrape information off the internet. I've got this divided into 2 different sections. One is where they are looking at firearm transactions. The second thing is where they're looking at where people are talking. We're going to start with firearm transactions. Firearm transactions, they've got it balkanized in a bunch of different groups, as I started to say. We've got major retailers, so we're talking about websites like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Brownells, stuff like that. And then we start to go all the way down until we get into the dark web. I'm going to be going through how the ATF themselves described this, because basically we start at the top of the ocean where the waters are clear and there's no anonymity involved, all the way down to the very bottom where anonymity is, nothing's 100%, but we'll say that it's very, very high, okay? And obviously, you can imagine, unless we're talking about straw purchases and things like that, the more you go down into these dark waters, the increased likelihood of things becoming illegal goes up, okay? That's their reasoning, at any rate. So don't blame me. I'm just the messenger because I'm going through their document. I'm reporting on it here for you. So we're going to start off talking about how the ATF described these major retailers. The ATF describes them as being, well, what we all know. These are regulated. They require federal background checks for any kind of purchases. As a result, there is no anonymity, at least at the point of sale. All transactions conducted through and by an FFL. So there's no private sales, for instance, happening out the back door of Cabela's. At least there ought not be, according to the Cabela's rules in the federal law. There are no individual sales on their websites or anything like that. Okay, so again, everything's going through an FFL. When you're purchasing these, you're going into the store. I assure you, all of these stores have cameras and you are on them. these require face-to-face transactions. Meaning if you go into one of these stores, they of course have you going through the background check. Never mind if you're using cash to pay for it. You're going through the background check, you're on camera. I don't know how long these stores are saving these images, these videos, and so forth. But the bottom line is, look, it's not anonymous. And hopefully I'm not breaking any bubbles for you if you thought that it was. Now, what you get for giving up any kind of anonymity is the fact that by and large, you get the most competitive pricing. You're getting the best prices by and large. Okay, barring that you stumble into some sort of yard sale where someone's selling a bunch of stuff that they've got no idea what they have. This is where you go if you, generally speaking, want the best deal. All right. And yeah, I'm going to get into buds and all that kind of stuff coming up in a moment. All right. But as a result, because of the lack of anonymity that you trade for, generally speaking, competitive pricing, you have the lowest level of potential for illegal transactions to occur, according to the ATF. And as a result, it is the most difficult for prohibited persons themselves to walk in and to directly purchase a firearm, as opposed to, again, using some sort of workaround like a straw purchase. All right, so the next group, number 2, is what the ATF calls online retailers. So we're talking about, at least relative to that first category, we're talking about smaller gun dealers who operate businesses. Some of these require FFL transfers, according to the ATF. Others operate in more what they call gray areas. There is still little to no anonymity with introduction through things like email, online communications, so forth. All transactions are therefore conducted through and by some sort of FFL. It's not like Bud's Gun Shop or something like that is just going to be mailing an AR-15 directly to your door. Now, the ATF reported that approximately 22% of gun stores, they estimate, have some sort of online retail presence. Now, that could be through directly on their website, or it could be through what we've got coming up, number 3, where we're talking about auction websites and so forth. But the bottom line is that this is obviously a growing segment. This is a growing category. Now, according to the ATF, we still are at nearly 100% legal sales. That is not my characterization. That is a direct quote from the ATF. Nearly 100% of these sales are legal, and they still put this in the lowest level for potential for illegal transactions to occur. Once more, the ATF does note that these prices are competitive, and I will just add generally much more competitive than going to one of those big box stores, but I don't have a sponsor or something like that, so this is just my own personal observation as someone who's out there in the world looking at firearms, okay? Category 3, online auctions and marketplaces. Now we're talking about websites like Gunbroker, Arms List, things like that. These sites allow private individuals to sell firearms, often with, in the ATF's view and characterization, quote, minimal oversight, end quote. So this is the first time where the ATF has said that anonymity increases. These sites are a mixture of FFLs as well as private individuals selling firearms. Auctions and buy it now options exist. These become oftentimes more local by allowing searches by state, local region, city, or even zip code level. As a result, this all increases the potential for illegal sales in the ATF's view. Firearms are sold online and are transferred by a local FFL into the buyer's state of residence. Competitive pricing still exists here. Yes, it does, but you know. Because of the cross-section of both anonymity in both buyers and sellers, and it's not really that anonymous, guys. Just hopefully you know that. It's not really that anonymous. Just take my word for it, okay? Maybe more on that in the next video, part 2. As well as the fact that you can now cross-sort by region, city, and zip code. The ATF codes it for having an increase in the potential for illegal sales. Group number 4, online classifieds. Now we're talking kind of Craigslist-style websites for firearms, okay? Some of these in the ATF's views happen with little or no background checks. Keep in mind, of course, private sales are legal, at least under federal law. Anonymity continues to increase, and likely more private sales than FFL sales in the ATF's views, as well as scraping the data. So now we have the first time where we have a switch, for sure, of the majority of the sales happening through FFLs to now the majority of sales happening through private individuals. The ATF also says that the majority of transactions are local sales. So we're probably talking about cash face-to-face transactions. As a result of all this, we've got face-to-face, we've got cash, and we also, of course, have anonymity. So the ATF codes this as having an even greater potential for illegal sales. And by the way, when the ATF says illegal sales, what they're talking about they're not talking about a private sale being illegal. What they're talking about is someone who's a prohibited possessor purchasing, stuff like that. And I'm 0% weighing in on whether or not those laws are constitutional or unconstitutional. That's not the purpose of this. I'm reporting on this document right now. For what it's worth, the ATF, in their view, says that the pricing here is, quote, somewhat competitive. All right, on to the next group. We're talking social media networks. We're talking Facebook groups. We're talking TikTok. We're talking Reddit. We're talking Instagram DMs. All that kind of stuff. Sales often happen through coded language, according to the ATF, in order to avoid detection. So maybe people aren't calling it an AR-15. Maybe they're trying to use coded language to avoid the mass pull up. Because, by the way, if you didn't know this, everything you type into WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, most of these sorts of instruments that you use to communicate, they are using, in many cases, AI or non-AI to basically code through and crawl looking for specific things, which will then be kicked up perhaps to a person, perhaps to another AI, to basically flag it for whether or not this is something that they want to turn over to the government. I say want because there's oftentimes no warrants involved. They may just report something, okay? So it's important to understand what is the data protection and what is the reporting like on particular messengers that you're using, including, by the way, potentially email. If you want to know more about all that kind of stuff, let me know. Maybe I can get an expert on in order to help us go through all that. Basically, the ATF says that this is virtually the exact same as what we just covered, so I won't go through it in detail, but it's virtually identical risk factors when we're talking about the Craigslist style. So on to the next one. Now we get into dark web marketplaces. So we're talking about places that are unregulated and are a hidden part of the internet. These are used in the ATF's views for illicit gun trafficking. In their view, again, I'm reading, ghost guns and illegally modified firearms. This offers, in their view, quote, approximately 100% anonymity, end quote. Almost all sales are conducted without an FFL. Sales are not regulated by the ATF. There are both domestic as well as international sales. There are no borders, no barriers, or no boundaries involved in these sorts of markets. Firearms are sold online and are transferred directly to the purchaser, oftentimes just through the good old mail office. If you didn't know this, by the way, largest drug dealer in the United States, USPS, but that's neither here or there. Sales are geared towards whomever is willing to basically pay the price, let the market decide. This has, however, the least competitive pricing. Why is it the least competitive pricing? Well, you're paying for the anonymity. That's why, in a nutshell. There's a whole host and range of tools that are used to gain and achieve and keep that anonymity. You got crypto transactions, all this other kind of stuff. No one's mailing a check here, trust me. But that's, in essence, part of what you're paying for. Unless, of course, you're prohibited, then you're also paying in order to get a firearm as a prohibited possessor, where you may not have any other means other than a face-to-face cash transaction. For what it's worth, there are about 2,000 new guns listed for sale daily across the internet, according to the ATF. GunBroker alone, according to their grossly outdated numbers, averages about 750,000 active listings with 6.5 million unique monthly visitors. Again, that's according to this document, which is from 2020, and it was sourcing numbers. When I went through it, this is a couple 100-page document, but when I found it, I found a lot of these numbers actually come from 2015. So I'm 0% suggesting that these numbers are accurate of GunBroker today. It's probably much higher. And by the way, if you're wondering what kind of firearms are listed on these dark web websites, you don't have to. Here's a picture of one of them right now up on your screen. This is from the ATF document. You can see it's a Norinco T54 pistol listed for $445. That's all a little bit about how the ATF goes through the retail world. What's relevant is the fact that they are scraping this information, looking at buyers, sellers, what's being sold. What is happening to that information? Is it possible that they're building a database, especially where we know that you can even use Google to search for firearms by serial number? If you take a picture of your firearm with the serial number, you ever notice how some people cross out their serial number? You know, they take MS Paint or whatever and just blank it out if they're posting a firearm online to show some sort of modification or else the case may be, right? So it doesn't get hoovered up into all these different systems, which can then be used combined with your username, which goes to your email, and the email goes to your name in order to figure out who owns what. Someday soon, probably already here, but probably not all that great, but someday soon, all these sorts of things are going to be used with AI to basically build a database. Yes, I understand that there are federal laws that are in place, but look, setting those concerns to the side, the simple fact is that the technology is already here. It's going to keep getting better. It's going to keep getting faster, more predictive as well. So that's the retail side. On the website front, they are absolutely on websites like AR15.com and others looking at what people are posting. Now, they're theoretically looking for threats alone. But what's the definition of a threat? If you've been paying attention to the world the last 10 years, you'll notice that maybe, or really the last 25, the definition of a threat has gone much wider and bigger than maybe a lot of us would traditionally consider it to be. One person's political speech, regardless of the side of your aisle that you're on, might be another person's threat. Something to consider before you start posting too many things online. No, I'm not suggesting that that's fair. I'm also not suggesting that it may be legal. In this video, I'm simply giving you the knowledge and information so that you can decide what you do with that. So this video has already gone too long. Next time, we're going to be getting into how are you helping the ATF. We're going to be getting into things like geofencing, data service providers, and so forth for how the ATF could be digging into your life as well as the lives of others. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. Our quote of the day comes from Francis Bacon, who said, quote, "Let nothing be unknown to you." Seems rather apropos given what we're talking about right now. I appreciate you sticking around this long. I'll see you in the comments section and in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.